Have you ever felt that sharing your faith is this awkward choice between being a good friend and being faithful? Well, Will Metzger's book, Tell the Truth, gets right to the heart of that problem. It offers this really powerful, God-centered way to think about evangelism that's all about freedom, not frustration. So let's dive in and break it down.
Right. Let's start with this tension that I think so many of us feel, On one side, you just want to be a genuine, authentic friend. But on the other, you feel this pull to be faithful and share what you believe. It can honestly feel like you have to pick one, which makes conversations feel kind of forced or just weird. This exact dilemma is right where the book kicks off.
And get this, the author, Will Metzger, he starts his book by basically saying, I've been there. He talks about seeing Christians who have these amazing relationships but never ever mention Jesus, and then seeing others who are always giving out the gospel but don't seem to have any real genuine friendships. He felt trapped in the middle, and that very frustration is what started his whole journey to find a better, more biblical way.
So what's the real problem here? Metzger's diagnosis is that our anxiety isn't about us lacking passion or not having the perfect sales pitch. Nope, the problem is way, way deeper. It's like we've been trying to share the most important message in the world, but with a broken tool.
He calls it a shrunken gospel. And what he means is that the message has been subtly twisted to focus more on us, our needs, our feelings, our decision, or maybe it's focused on some special method that promises to get results. Either way, the focus is shifted away from the one person the gospel is actually about, God himself.
This chart just lays out the difference so clearly. Look at the contrast. On the left, a God-centered approach is all about His glory, His truth. It's a proclamation. But on the right, this me-centered version, it's all about human needs, specific techniques, and selling a what's-in-it-for-you benefit. Metzger's whole point is that your starting point, well, it changes everything about the message you share.
All right, so once we see the problem, Metzger offers a solution that is just so liberating. Seriously, it all comes down to a really simple but profound distinction: understanding our job versus God's job.
So, what's our job? We're farmers, we plant the seeds of the gospel, and we water them. That's it. Our responsibility is simply to faithfully and lovingly present the message. We live it out, and we speak it clearly. The pressure to make something grow, to close the deal, that's not on us.
Because making the seed grow, that's God's job. Metzger calls this regeneration, the miracle of giving someone a new spiritual birth. This is God's sovereign work, and His alone. And when you really, truly get that, all the pressure just melts away. You're freed from this burden of getting results, and you can just focus on being a faithful messenger.
Okay, so if our job is to faithfully present the message, then what is that message exactly? Well, to rebuild the full gospel, Metzger gives us a clear structure, what he calls its grammar, and it's made up of 5 essential points.
He boils it down to these 5 key things. It always starts with God, who He is. Then it explains our problem, sin. From there, it presents the only solution, Christ. Then it calls for our response, turning and trusting. And finally, it describes the result, a new life and a new family, a home with God. This whole framework makes sure we're telling the whole story, not just a piece of it.
Now, to make these 5 points super memorable and easy to share, Metzger created this simple but really profound visual tool. He calls it the Come Home diagram, and it's basically a roadmap for the entire gospel story.
Okay, so here it is. This diagram is really a visual map of the entire gospel journey. You can see it shows 2 different paths, a road of death and a road home. Our sin creates this huge gap that we can't possibly cross by ourselves, and Jesus Christ is the bridge, the only way back to God. Let's just walk through it, point by point.
Just like the diagram shows, the story doesn't start with us. It doesn't start with our needs or our problems. It starts with God. He is our creator, our owner, and our judge, and that means He has rights over our lives. We are accountable to Him. This is the foundation that gives everything else its meaning.
Point 2 shows our big problem, sin. It's us choosing our own way, that self-centered road that leads away from God. This creates a gap we can't cross. But then we get to point 3, the best news ever. Jesus Christ is the bridge. Through His life, His death, and His resurrection, He takes the penalty we deserve and opens the one and only way back to God.
So how do we cross that bridge? Well, that's point 4, our response, and it takes 2 things: turning away from that road of self-centeredness, what the Bible calls repentance, and trusting completely in Jesus to save us. And the result, point 5, is that we come home. We're adopted into God's family, we're loved, and we're given a brand new purpose and a new destiny.
Now, having this clear, God-centered message is fantastic. But how do we actually communicate it in a world that's often really skeptical, or maybe even hostile to any claims of exclusive truth? Metzger tackles this question head-on.
He makes this incredible point that authentic Christianity holds two things together that our world often tries to pull apart: a deep conviction about truth and a genuine tolerance and love for people. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. In fact, he says holding them together is the only way to witness effectively.
And he draws such a crucial distinction right here. Look at the left column. Modern tolerance often demands approval, right? It tries to be inoffensive, and frankly, it costs nothing. But look at the right. Christ-like love is active. It takes risks. It tells the truth precisely because it cares. Real love costs everything because it's willing to be misunderstood for someone else's ultimate good.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it means we listen way more than we talk. We aim our words at the conscience, that deep sense of right and wrong that God put in every single person. We're honest about our own struggles and weaknesses. We totally depend on prayer, always remembering that changing hearts is God's job. And above all, we mix our firm conviction with real, heartfelt compassion. And all of this brings us to one final thought. If our job isn't to get a decision, but simply to plant a seed, if success isn't measured by conversions, but by our faithfulness, how does that totally change the way we approach our very next conversation? It's a shift in perspective that replaces fear and pressure with freedom and trust. And you know, that might just be the most revolutionary idea of all.